Hi, this is Lauren from Rosie Wednesday Adventures in Vintage Style Sewing, and today I'll be showing you how to sew the darts on Simplicity 3833 for our shift dress sew along. So the first thing that you'll see is that I've got the front of my bodice dress here, and I've got pieces 2 stitched together up to piece 1. And then we're going to be connecting the dart legs here. So we see we've already got those traced. So what you're going to do is you'll take the raw edges here at the edge and you'll connect them together. So you can see that I've got 2 notches that are showing me here where to line those 2 pieces up. So I'll be taking my pins and I'm going to stick a pin through one side of the dart through the tracing and then connect it through to the other side. So it's pretty easy when you're getting on this side because we've got the raw edges that are pretty much going to line up together. So we'll just continue pinning, making sure that it's lining up on both sides. So I'm just shifting it with my fingers a little bit if it's not lining up to make sure that it's connecting all the way. And I'll do that all the way up. And I'm getting close to the seam that connects the piece 1 to piece 2. So as I'm getting close to that seam, I'm going to pinch my fingers at the end of the dart and fold it. So you can kind of already see that there's a nice fold that gets created here, and I can see the dart that needs to be sewn. So when we pressed earlier, we made sure to press down that seam allowance. So we want to make sure that it stays that way. So go ahead and pin it down that way. And again, I'm still checking to make sure that my dots are connecting on both sides. Now when I can go ahead and put a pin in at the end of the dart tip, and then keep checking to make sure both my sides are lining up. Okay, so now we've got it pinned from beginning all the way down to the end, and next we're going to take it to the machine to stitch. So at my machine, I'm set to just a regular stitch length, which is 2.2 for me. And I'm going to begin by back tacking and sewing straight forward so that the seam is nice and secure. And I'm going to be just stitching along that traced line. So I'll start sewing. It helps when you plug it in. Okay. And a back tack. And then as I go, I want to make sure to remove my pins and check to make sure that there's not any bubbles or folds in my fabric happening on the bottom side of my fabric. So I'm just feeling with my hands as I go and stitching right along that line. And now I'm getting close to the point where I've got that seam allowance, so I want to make sure as I stitch that it continues to stay in the down position. Doesn't fold. So mine started to fold a little bit, so I picked up my presser foot when my needle was in the down position and just made sure that it stayed flat. Can feel a little bit of a fold under there, so I just want to make sure that that's out of the way so I'm not stitching a fold into my dart. Now as I'm getting towards the end of the dart, I actually want to shorten my stitch length. So I'm going to change it to 1.5 on my machine, and this helps to make sure that you don't get any puckers at the end of your dart, which is not very attractive. Now as I'm getting towards the very tip of the dart, I'm not going to back tack. I'm going to stitch straight off the edge of the garment, and I'll be hand tying it with a knot. And I also like to make sure that I'm stitching right close to the very edge of the dart. So that way you're not getting, again, any puckers on the edge. Okay. So now I'm going to cut off the threads, and then I'll just be tying these by hand. So all of this is to make sure that you don't get little bubbles on your nipples. Okay. So the next thing that we'll do is take it over to the machine to press on a tailor's ham. So we'll be using this right here, which is called a tailor's ham, and it's going to help you press the dart and make sure that it maintains its shape. So if you don't have a tailor's ham, you can use the end of your ironing board and it works just as well. So when you have horizontal darts, you want to press them down. So we'll be pressing this dart down. So I'm going to line the tip of the dart up with the narrowest part of the tailor's ham. Okay. And then I'll take my iron. It's good if you've got it on steam. And then press the dart down. So when I pull it over, I can see that I've got a nice dart that connects my bodice front, and then I've got the center seam here. So you'll repeat this for the dart on the other side as well. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is sew a dart on the back of the garment. So we'll set that right there. So on the back of your garment, you have 2 darts. 4 total, you have 2 on each side, and one of those darts is a 2-sided dart. So I'm going to show you how to sew a 2-sided dart. So we're going to use the same method that we used before to pin the dart, making sure that you're connecting the lines on both sides. So I've got one already pinned here. Now the only difference between this dart and the one that we sewed before is that we're going to be we won't be back tacking on either side of the dart. So we want to start with a shorter stitch length on the end of both darts. So right now I'm at 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch, making sure not to back tack. So I've gone a little ways and I'm going to change my stitch length back up to 2.2. And then you'll just continue stitching all along the rest of the dart. This part takes a minute, so we'll go ahead and speed it up. So now we're getting back towards the other end of the dart. So I'm going to shorten my stitch length again to 1.5 and continue stitching off the end. Okay. And then we want to tie off both ends of the dart. So go ahead and tie those off, and then we'll take it over to the ironing board and press again. With vertical darts, you want to make sure to press those towards the center of your seams. So we'll lay it on the ironing board, and I'm going to press this time towards the center of the garment. And I'm just flattening things out with my hand as I go. And there you have it. So you'll repeat the process with your other back darts. There are 3 more of them to sew, and then you'll be done sewing all your darts.